I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. This is basically a Q&A forum on the rate increase in the electric. I'm Joe Waltz, the town manager. To the right of me, I got David Jenkins, the Director of Electrical Services, and I got Director of Finance, BJ Wilson. Basically, what we're here tonight is just to answer questions. It's just basically a Q&A forum, maybe to get some information to you before the public hearing. We do have a couple slides, a couple displays up here. This first one gives you a perspective of where we're at with other utilities in the state of Virginia. Currently, where our rates are right now, we are ranked 8th in the state. As you can see, when we start doing our rate increases, we're going to move to 12th. Now, the focal point here is to recognize that we're still competitive in the area. If you look out further out, Rappahannock, we're still cheaper than our surrounding utility, which is good. Over here on the right, we have two rate classes for electrical, residential and commercial. This first one here is a breakdown on our residential rate recommendation increase. We got a 2-year process. What we're doing is we're increasing the customer charge and the energy charge, and then we're going to be lowering the PCA. And we're doing the same over on the commercial side. What happened was about a year ago, we started receiving increased congestion charges on the transmission network, which overall increased our energy prices. We were hoping that it was just an abnormality, but the increases have sustained. So we had to hire a firm to figure out what our rates needed to be for that we could recover all our costs. The thing to remember is we are a non-profit, so whatever we make, we spend, we return back. So there is no profit in this. So we hired a firm called GDS. They perform the cost of service analysis. It normally takes 3 to 6 months. They basically do a rate case analysis, and this is their recommendation for us to get whole. The thing that we have not really discussed is that we have been running the electric department in a deficit over the past year. Standard business practice, you try to keep a 3 months reserve, and right now we're below that, and that's where we're trying to get back into being in good standing with our credit rating and have 3 months reserve. But besides that, we just want to be available tonight to answer any questions. And you know, there is some confusion out there. A lot of questions on what the PCA stands for. PCA stands for Power Cost Adjustment. It's a utility standard. Some utilities call it a fuel cost adjustment, but Rappahannock, if you look at Rappahannock bills, they're a little bit more detailed because they break it out into distribution charges and then generation charges, so it's a little hard to follow. So when you compare utilities versus another utility, what you always use is that 1,000 kilowatts. And that's where this chart is based on. And that's where we are right now ranked 8th, and when we make the changes, we'll be ranked 12th. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Any of us three?
I don't understand why, when this was all taken in, and we know the county is growing at a massive rate. I know the building is down now, but you can look and see all of the schools and so on and so forth. And my feelings are that we need to try to stay in. I know we're getting into budget now, but we need to keep our budget. If I don't have the money, I don't spend it. I don't plan to spend it. I've got a lot of faith in God, but I know God helps those who help themselves. This PCA, or whatever you call it, Clean Air Alliance, is that what it is?
No, ma'am. It's called a Power Cost Adjustment.
Okay, tell me how it works. This makes no sense to me at all.
Okay. There are two components in your bill. You have a base rate.
Well, I know that.
All right, and then you have your PCA.
See that?
The idea of the PCA is that you can react to the market when there's an upset in the market, such as we see high prices in power, like a polar vortex. The PCA allows you to recover those costs quickly. The problem with, you can't do that with a base rate, because a base rate you have to advertise in the paper, and it takes 2 months to get a base rate increase. So that's why you see even Rappahannock with their fuel cost adjustment, it is a variable to do the course of business.
Well, is the government doing a mandate for this? I mean, how is this working? That's what I don't understand. Is it a tax or what is it?
No, ma'am, it is basically what we're trying to do is capture the costs that we're having on the transmission line. So the idea is if that...
When's it gonna stop? Ever?
No.
No, well, the idea is hopefully that the PCA will decrease over time with the transmission network, but at the end of the day, we have no control over what's going on in the transmission network. That's regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and then there are transmission groups like PJM who we're involved in. They set those rates. Every utility in that region are
Well, think about people who are on a fixed income.
and I understand that.
And, we also have lots of people who, I volunteer at our church a lot. I have people coming in that they cannot pay their bills because they don't make enough money. So therefore, then they're in a motel and they're going to churches to try to get enough money to sleep in a motel that night as opposed to a tent or the thermal thing.
And I understand that plight, but at the end of the day, we are still competitive with Rappahannock, and at the end of the day, it is just the cost of doing business. We are not making extra money for the
Well,
tenant.
Rappahannock we are a very big town. And what is Rappahannock? Little Washington?
No, sir. No, ma'am. Rappahannock is probably one of the 5th largest in the country.
And the richest.
Well, cooperatives normally run a little bit higher on their rates, and it's due to their vast service territory and the coverage they have to cover.
Well, I remember when a bunch of people went to Sweden or somewhere to do this, when they were firing these furnaces and all that stuff, the town sent a bunch of people. You probably, before your time, you don't remember, but I do. You remember, Gene?
He wasn't here.
Uh-uh. And what happened to that big idea?
I have no idea what you're talking
Gene can
about.
tell you.
Joe, what they did, there were several went over and went to Denmark, and in turn they burn their trash and they generate electricity. And we've looked into it. We went to Boston as well, in the New England states, and checked it out. Personally, I think it's a good idea, a great idea, that if we could have it railed in and start getting rid of our trash. That's what it's all about, generating power, getting rid of the trash, the whole 9 yards. And it just sort of fizzled out because when everybody said the cost is $50-60 million or it's just started, then it sort of fizzled out. But going back to what I know, I don't think you understood their question, their point, because the CPA is something that we don't control at all. We get a bill, and that CPA is on our bill, and then they justify your bill by how many megawatt hours you use, like 1,000. And all we're doing is passing that cost that they send us, like what, 500,000, whatever it be, is split up between all of our customers, and everybody gets the same share and has to pay the same share.
Okay, but what is this SCE? That's another form of the fuel thing?
SCE, I don't have to know what SCE. Yeah, we're not.
Where'd you get that at?
Internet.
I've never heard of that.
You go, girl. Okay,
It's
so,
fed with natural gas and different things rather than, and no coal, but anyway.
so one of my questions and why I decided to come down here tonight is, not only am I the vice president for Habitat for Humanity, so we also get a lot of phone calls, but personally myself, when you could go down and argue with the town all you want on your bill, but it's 2 people in my household, and my husband is a truck driver, so he goes out at night and I'm asleep. There is no way that my electric bill is $457 with just 2 people in there. My bill was running that 3 years ago when my daughter and her 2 kids were there. So now that they're not, it's like it jumped up $200. But if you go down there and you say, okay, so, what is the reason? Because I was watching on Facebook what a lot of people were saying on how their bill have jumped up. One person said their bill went to $940. So I understand we have an increase. I understand you're estimating, but how can you not read the meter? And then I asked them to come back out and reread my meter. They said, oh, your meter is correct. There is no way that I could jump $200. And I feel like anytime it gets cold outside or it snows, that is the opportunity to raise it up. When you know that you keep your heat at a certain amount in your house all the time. Can you answer?
Well, without knowing your house, what type of heat
It's a
system,
townhouse.
how many people,
It's
what
electric.
square footage, I couldn't give you an answer there. I do know that there is some confusion because people recognize, you have to recognize that the bill you get from the town just doesn't have the electric, has water, sewer, and trash. So sometimes when we encounter somebody who has an issue with a high bill complaint, a lot of times it's shared not just electric, but they either have a water issue as well.
Well, I got all of that checked, so there is no water issue. So between my whole electric bill was still $457. It went up $200. Now, I'm in a duplex on Duck Street. So my neighbors next to me, hers is only like 2 or 3. And it's just 2 in that household. So I'm just trying to understand why mine would be so high. So, you know, the going joke around here is you're paying for people that aren't paying for theirs. But the town tells me that that's not true, that it's just associated with just your residents. I'm in a townhouse. I'm not even in a house that has 5 bedrooms in it. You understand what I'm saying? So to me, it's something wrong. It's something wrong with them coming out and reading the meters, but it's something wrong because when your bill keeps going up, up, and up, and you're not changing anything, I work 9 hours, so I'm going all day. He's there and he's sleeping. So there is nothing, right, it's nothing really going on that's a change. So is it the area or what?
We can certainly I can have your meter reread. We can test the meter, your electric meter if you'd like. We can show you how it's read if you want to go outside and maybe take a look at it and see when the increments are increasing.
I would like to learn how to read my meter so that I could get a printout from y'all, because you can't get a printout every month and your meter can't.
Well, we can do a history on the electric meters. We can do a monthly history. I believe you're referring to the water meters. The water meters do have the ability to, some of them, to do in daily or hourly increments. But I'll be happy to send a meter reader out to show you how to read the meter, and you can take daily readings if you'd like. We can certainly do that.
Because it's not just me. If you're on Facebook, everybody was saying on how their electric bill jumped $200 to $300. I could see, okay, it's a little cold, $50, but not $200 to $300. That is an awful lot.
If you want to see me after we get done here, I'll take your information.
Okay.
We can work something. Okay.
I have a similar story to the lady. For 8 years, I've never had a bill over $40-something. I got a bill in either December or January for $167. And it was brought to your attention, Mr. Milton, and you reduced it. A friend of mine produced a letter,
I don't read.
but there was no explanation for $167, which is 4 times.
I did speak with your friend. If you want to speak with me after the fact, I don't want to discuss personal accounts.
Well, he was supposed to be here, but he's not here.
But yeah,
But I was away at the time, and I've never had over 45, usually 39, and I got $167.
I believe you had some.
And I've never had an explanation.
You had some unfortunate circumstances, if I remember correctly, that happened to the property.
Say that again, please.
You had some unfortunate circumstances with the property.
It's an apartment house.
Yeah, we can, if you want, we can discuss it after the fact. I don't want to discuss your personal account publicly.
Well, what's personal about it? The lady's telling you what she got, and
Well,
I'm telling you what I got.
go ahead, BJ. If I remember correctly, you had a vehicle crash into your apartment, right?
That has nothing to do with my apartment. And let me add a little addendum. I went to the supermarket, and many people said, yes, my bill is outrageous. So that's what made me look into it.
Yeah, but I believe that there was another problem with that. Like I say, if you want, we can discuss it further after here.
Well, Mr. Wilson did reduce it.
I'm Mr. Wilson, and there was a
Are
reason.
you Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
I was not here.
Yes, there's
Do you remember him reduced the friend coming in?
Yes, I do.
And you reduced it to 70 something, but that's twice what I usually pay, it's not right.
It was reduced, there was a problem with the meter reading, I understand that part. And what happened was, if I remember correctly, you had changed departments?
Yes,
Okay.
that's all in there, it's all in there.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of, but yeah.
But this was for the old department, it had nothing to do with the change. It was
I
either December, I think it was a December
believe
bill.
it did have something to do with the change out, if I remember correctly. And I'm sorry, I don't remember all the aspects of it, but but it was supposed to.
Where did her increase come? Where did all the people I talked to, the increase come from?
Okay, well, I can't speak to everyone's
It's like a
effects, but
conspiracy.
with yours, if I remember correctly, you had moved out and was supposed to go into the landlord's name, or not moved out, but I guess a car had crashed into it and was going to go back into the landlord's name.
But that had nothing to do with my apartment. My apartment was completely safe, but I continued to live in it.
Well, like I said, if you want to come to my office or if you want to speak after the fact, I can certainly address that.
Well, I was satisfied too. I heard all the other stories.
Joe, two questions. On this competitive position, when you add in the PCA charges, where do we rank?
The PCA, everything's added here.
Oh, so we rank here with
Everything is
PCA?
ranked. Everything's ranked just like the other utilities with
With
their
PCA,
fuel cost
okay.
adjustments and everything else. It's everything all lumped up and what 1,000 kW would cost you at all these
Okay.
utilities across the state.
So it won't change whether, okay, that was
No.
my question, if you did that. The other question is, and I think people need an understanding that our bills are based upon consumption. The more you use, the more you pay. If your bill goes up, you use more. There's no question. Now, there are cases where the meter could be defective and you may have a erroneous reading. But except for that, it has to be on consumption. There's no other way your bill can go up. And I think people don't realize that, yes, you haven't had an increase for a long time, but you realize your water heater is over 20% of your bill. And if you haven't changed your water heater, if it's 10 years old, all of a sudden an element goes bad or whatever it is, now you have a horrendous electric bill because it's just like shorting the wire out when you have things. So I still feel that the rates are on consumption. You know, I have a commercial building as well, and this cold weather, even though you think it's just a few degrees, that just a 4 or 5 degree temperature change can 30 or 40% increase on your consumption, just with a very small change.
I know that.
And
Yeah, the problem that we have here in our community is we have a lot of older homes. And the wintertime impacts a lot of us because they have electric baseboard heat, which is when you hit a polar vortex or these winters like we've been having where they're just cold for a couple of weeks, they have a dramatic impact on our bills. I see it all the time when I talk to people about high bills. A lot of times they have this electric heat, they're renters, they have no control over the energy efficiency of the place they're renting. So there are issues there in that we recognize that unfortunately some people are already behind the 8 ball because of the infrastructure that they're living in.
but I think the town is taking a bad rap on, like they're purposely raising people's rates.
They are gonna be.
But they can't be, it's based on consumption. The only way the rates go up is if you use more goods. If you use more electric or water or sewer, your rates, you're gonna pay more. There's no other way around it.
So do they check the meters for your electric every single month? Or go to each house to check it? Or do they do it in the office like in Fairfax County?
With the electric meters, we do read them manually every month, with the exception if we have snow or something of that nature. The water meters, we read those manually, but we also have some, we're in the process of switching all of our water meters over to radio reads, where they're read through radio waves. They radio back into a computer.
Something else I wanted to kind of bring to the conversation, heat pumps. Once the temperature goes down to a certain amount, a lot of people's heat pump will activate something called emergency heat. And that will drive your electric bill up as well, because I know it did. I have a Rappahannock right now, and during the coldest parts of the, of the winter, our power bill shot up to, well, I think the highest that we got, and we just paid it, was like $490. And that was primarily because of that emergency heat working to try to keep our house at a constant temperature of 72. So,
That's pretty darn, mine's
Yeah.
at 65.
well, we like it a little warmer.
I do too. I can't afford it.
So,
So it's working.
Yes, with the proposed electric base rate increasing in the hope that the PCA charge will drop, is there any sort of certainty with that? Given that the PCA charge is prone to vortexes, fuel costs, et cetera, what if it doesn't drop?
Well, we're committed to keeping this PCA in this rate base for the next 2 years. We'll have to evaluate it after that. But what we're trying to do now is if our portfolio where we purchase power, we do get involved into some generation assets, and we do contracts as well. We spread our risk around. We still have some opportunities in the future to try to reduce our power costs, and we're going to try to do that. That is our job here. Just right now, this is what we're dealing with. So basically what we're doing is we're raising the base rate and lowering the PCA. Because what's happened is we haven't raised our base rates in 10 years. So what's happened is once we started seeing an increase in transmission costs, as we started adjusting the PCA. And at this point, the PCA is too high. And so now we've had to recalibrate, but to recalibrate, we had to get a study done to determine what the exact costs are, because at the end of the day, we do not make a profit. And so that's why we had to get the study done to make sure. So even though we have a rate increase this year, we're still in a path to get that 3 months reserve that we're behind.
And how long is that going to take?
Hopefully in 2 years, we'll get back to full reserve.
What concerns me is two things. Like Evelyn said, we are in a church, real busy in a church, and we talk with a lot of elderly people. I have a neighbor whose bill lives by himself. He's 96 years old, lives by himself, has someone come in to clean, his laundry sent out, all of this. $600 bill, and the PCA was over 100. They did check his meter and said it was all right, brought it back. And then another lady who lives by herself on Polk Avenue, elderly, in her 90s, hers was over 400.
In her house in Jenkins.
Yeah, you see, that bothers me so much. Of course, I live side by side, near Evelyn, my sister. And I close off one bedroom, my TV room and sewing room in the back, and just have the one bedroom and open to the living room and dining room and all. And her bill is 120 less than mine. And she has her lights on, doesn't she, Bill?
And every door open.
It is very hard to do comparisons between houses.
I know
because-
you're saying
My
that,
house is
but
bigger
I think
than
you ought to
hers.
hear our stories.
I understand, but
We're complaining, we want
We're
you to
complaining.
listen.
We're complaining, we are complaining.
One of the things that we can do at your house, if you do not see, I mean, we have what's called a recording voltmeter at our shop down at the Energy Service Department. We can come out and put that, and what that does is it's taking readings the whole entire time it's on there. And what we can do is we can see exactly when your most highest consumption is happening. Say, like for the normal family, gets home at 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. First thing you do is start cooking a little supper for the family. You know, we see it rise at that point. Now, that's not the case for everyone, but if after we're finished here, if you give me your information, we can put that on and
I
just
get a
get a
new
good
meter?
reading. Yes, you can. We have digital meters now.
Careful what you ask.
When we first plug that in,
We can't read them.
Right. Well, what you'll see is it starts off with 5 zeros. And what that does, it makes it really easy to read, and you can see each consumption. And at that point, it's really easy to read. You can keep up with it every day or weekly, monthly.
You'll be going outside, say, turn something off, it's spinning too
Exactly,
fast.
right.
I'm not really
I won't watch
unhappy. I just don't like that CPA or PCA or whatever it is. I don't like that. you know.
Sorry, I just have a couple questions. Okay, other electrical companies have heard of these programs where they sort of prorate the bill the entire year, meaning if your bill is lower in the summertime, you pay a little bit more, but you're paying for the overage, or what you would pay extra in the wintertime. Is a program like that possible?
We do have a program in place. It's our budget billing program. The criteria is you have to be a resident of the current location for the period of 1 year in good credit standings with us. That way we're not, we don't want to base your consumption off of some, family of 5 and then maybe it's just you. So we ask that you be a resident for the period of 1 year. Sign up for that is in May. If you want to give me your contact information, I'll be happy to do so. Sign up is in May. The billing for June, that's usually due in July, depending on your billing cycle, is where it would start, and it goes for 11 months at the same rate. And then June is the catch-up month, so if it's over or under, we adjust accordingly in that month.
And how would you factor in the PCA charge to something like that?
It is an estimate. We estimate it as best we can, and like I say, it may be over or under, unfortunately.
And another question, maybe an off question. Is the town of Front Royal a bond holder as part of the Build America Bonds program under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act? For sure. Not even way
Well,
back
they
in bonds
we may have some affiliation with our wholesale power provider, American Municipal Power out of Ohio. Some of the generation projects might have been built by BAPS, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But
We're going to find more information on that.
Well, AMP does have a website, but I don't know if they'll list all that. I'll have to, maybe get your information and I can find out for you.
Okay.
So, what you really was just talking about from her question was like the budget program. So, say in May, I decided to sign up for the budget program. So I know that even in the wintertime, my bill normally runs $200 to $75. How would you go to adjust it if it's like running $412 and $457? How would that go if, for the 11 months?
If there's a significant increase, what we would do is we would reach out to that customer and we would offer to raise the payments over the next however many months we have left in order to adjust for it so you don't see that huge increase all at one time. Some of our customers choose to just pay it at the end. It's on a case-by-case basis if it's a huge increase.
So is this offer told to a lot of the elderly or the single families when they come in to pay their electric bill? Because a lot of them that I've spoke with didn't even know that this program exists.
It has been part of our newsletter that's included in the utility bills in the past. We've spoken about it a few times, but it's also on our website. So, there are ways. I apologize if it's not well known. Maybe we need to do a better job.
Yeah, because a lot of the elderly, they might read it or they might not, but they're the ones that are mostly coming to us, asking for help.
And like I say, a lot of the criteria prevents some people because you have to be a resident for a period of 1 year, so it's fair. And then, of course, good credit standings because we are extending credit at that point in time.
So somebody who had, like somebody that had wrote on the Facebook page, $940. Well, if you've always paid your bill, good, but then in the wintertime, you're getting these huge bills, then that knocks your whole credit out for you to be able to be on the budget.
Up to four late payments a year. So, it could carry over there. So if we saw in the past that was good, we would work with them for those 4 months. We're always willing to do payment arrangements.
So are you working with people who have, thank God right now, my husband is the one that he's paying the bill. He don't really fuss. That's me. This is me. Because to me, that's money I could probably be paying something off with or having fun with, going to casino or anything. But, well, right now, y'all must go. But right now, it's you know, this is like a huge question. I mean,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I've taken numerous calls just today on this and on the budget billing, and you're right, a lot of people are unaware of it. And then and then some people are, I don't know which one, they don't trust it. They don't believe in it, the budget plan, they're afraid. And so we got to try to get over that as well.
so are you trying to educate them when they
Well,
come
I'm
in?
educating, we're educating them as we're going and talking, but you're right, we need to get that out there, and that'll be one of the takeaways from this
This
meeting
is a good
today.
thing, then, just talking to us about this.
Right.
I'm not as mad at you as I was.
But that is one of the takeaways we can take away today, is to try to get out there and let people know more about the budget plan. Because for a lot of the people I've talked to, they don't have a problem except when it gets really cold and they hit that cold snap, and then they have that outrageous bill. When I've talked to some of the residents, over the summer, they don't have much air conditioning, so their bills are just real light. And so if we can convince them to sign up for this budget billing, yeah, granted, you're gonna pay a little bit more in the summer than you normally do, but at the end of the day, it levelizes out. So it's just an education on our part, and we need to get the word out.
Okay.
I have a question related to the high bills and in the month of January, I got a bill of 283, and then in February went to 516. And when I went to pay the bill, I want to get information about why, and they don't have a good explanation about it. And then what they told me, maybe because the bill that you paid last month was only 283, and then went up, and I said, how are you gonna triple the amount when it's winter time? January and February is more likely. And I told them that in our house we only two persons, me and my wife, and we put new windows. We got a new system of air conditioning or heating that is expensive. And I mean, I want to know if they have any person that can deal with that kind of issue, that we can get the right answer when we go to complain about any bill that they come too high. And I think $100 is okay, but when you triple the amount of money in 1 month, and in winter time, I think that stuff is too high. And I was asking her about the tax too, whatever they call the PCA, whatever. And I told her how they evaluate that tax, and I pay about close to $100 of taxes. And I said, well, that stuff is kind of, hard to believe that, that huge amount of money in the tax and the regular bill is triple the amount of money. And I say, something and maybe it's wrong. But there is nobody over there that can give you the right answer of how I'm going to find out if something went wrong with the meter or anything ever went wrong,
The thing is, we're all available, and we're going to be available after this session and available after the public hearing. Okay? The things that we want to let the citizens know, things that we can do. You can get your meter reread. Contact the finance department. First thing you should do, if you think there's a discrepancy in your meter reading, call and get a recheck. You can also, if you have doubts about your meter, you can request a meter test. I'll be honest with you, I've been in this business for 30 years. The meters themselves, they normally run slower, not faster. You do run an occasion, but it's a rare occasion that a meter will be bad. But you can have that tested to verify. Also, something that Mr. Jenkins mentioned is we can put a meter on your house and monitor it for a couple days or a week. What that tells you is if you have any phantom load out there. So say you know everybody's gone all during the day, but we look at the report, well, somebody's using energy in your house while you're gone. So that, it just requires a little investigating work, but we can offer that. You would contact the electric department and you could get that power quality meter installed on your house. And then obviously with financing, the budget plan, I think that's important. And anything else, we are here to help. We're here to serve.
We're going to have free college, free medical. Can we have free electricity?
No, you're socialist. There are no free rides.
Joe, I had a caller from a commercial customer, and he was sort of real nice about it, but I know he was disgusted at the fact that when you read the North Virginia today, it had that a customer that uses 1,000 kilowatts, their bill would go up $30 per 1,000 kilowatts. Am I right?
No,
No,
in commercial, it's,
Well, let me first, you can explain that in a minute, but he was wondering, what's the difference between the residential rate and the commercial rate, which I pretty well know, but can you explain that to those people? I know, I see Rick's here, and I know Rick's a commercial customer, and he may want to chime in on something like that.
well, the commercial rate, there's two tiers. Basically, this is the first tier, which is the first 700 kilowatt hours. And then there is the next tier after the 700. So the idea between the two-tier system is you have big commercial businesses in here. They use a lot of energy. So when they're using a lot of energy, you provide a discount because it's all going to one load, one point, just like one on a house. So that's why we have two tiers. First 700, which most of the times will cover a majority of your small commercial accounts, maybe a little bit more. But then we have that second tier for because we have customers, how many kilowatt hours are some of our bigger customers?
We have some that go to 10,000, 15,000.
10 and 15,000 kilowatts versus what you would see in your house. So that we provide a second tier, but it's still, as you can see here, is still almost 9 cents on that second tier. We've always had a two-tier system, so we kept that when we did the study. Did that answer your question, Steve?
I don't know, ask Rick, he's,
Well, I mean, like for me, certainly the daily got my attention. I thought it was 3,000 kilowatts, 1,000 kilowatt.
It's $11 per thousand.
So that would be about right then, 3 times 11, would be about $30. But, like this customer-related costs here, and I haven't studied this more than a few minutes today, but, like if I look at that one and I look at the residential one, it looks like the commercial customer is almost paying 3 times as much as the residential customer. What does the customer-related cost, what's that mean?
You want to answer?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well, what that is that's just having the service. So in other words, the infrastructure that it takes to run most businesses costs a lot higher than what it does for residential.
Yeah.
It also is much more maintenance as far as our department, and that's what you're seeing in that customer charge.
For example, residential, one transformer will feed 4 houses.
Right.
On a commercial installation, normally it's whatever we put up there, it serves that customer only. That's why the customer charge is higher.
And most of the time for a 3-phase service, a lot of customers like yourself, you got 3 transformers involved in that.
So on your commercial, you have single phase going to certain places and 3-phase going to others. What's the rate difference between a single phase and a 3-phase for a commercial customer? Because I was told that the 3-phase is a lower rate, and when I went 3-phase in the ice cream shop, my bill raised at that point. That was 2.5 years ago, and continues to go up, but fluctuates. We're open all the time, so the bill is consumption. I agree, it is what it is. But what's the rate difference for a 3-phase coming into a commercial building as opposed to a single phase coming in to a commercial building?
Well, as far as the customer charge goes, they're still the same. Now, like Joe pointed out, you got the 2 tiers of the 700. So if he was to be a commercial customer, Your customer charge will be the same, depending on where you fell in that tier.
But your charge per kilowatt's the same?
Yes.
So my apologies, I came in late, somebody had to start the movies, so. Customers are first.
Okay, speak.
Do I hear you're trying to mitigate the expense of the PCA? Because, I mean, I got PCAs at $400, $130. I mean, it's pretty devastating some months.
Yeah, what's happened is we haven't raised our base rates in 10 years. And what we've been doing is adjusting the PCA to cover the cost.
I've noticed.
And what's happened is what we came to the determination last year that this was going to be the normal course of business, that this was the way we were going to have to do it. So we engaged GDS to do the cost service study to get our base rate to where it needs to be and the PCA down lower. So that's what we're doing. We're just shifting the cost from the PCA over to the base. The reason we don't take all of the PCA over to the base is because what happens next year is something could happen in the transmission network and that number could go negative. It's very rare, but it could. But if you included it on the base rate, then you kind of get lost in that. So that's why that number is there, for it can go up or down.
But the PCA should go down with these changes.
Yes, right. As you can see, for like residential, the PCA is going to drop over half. Commercial, yeah, over half as well. So we're basically just shifting those revenues over to the base.
How about this peak meter reading? We still have that?
We still have demand.
A demand, and is that part of this load, what is it called? Cost load bearing, what's that?
Cost of
Management, cost load management, or whatever it was?
The demand component
Demand.
has not changed.
The demand component has not changed. We are looking at it, but it is not changing at the present.
Well, I know my bill went down when I don't turn the equipment on at 7:30 in the morning. I wait till 10 o'clock, I pay less money.
I'll have to get some tips on that, because mine are 300 and 100 for that, too.
I know my bill is high, but actually my electric bill was less this last month than the month before.
The demand component can play a part.
And that was because we were starting later in the day, I think.
Joe, I'm sitting here listening to this thing, and I've checked my bill. The PCA is getting a bad mark because, like Mr. McCool said, it's the consumption rate. And I looked at it long and hard. Can we create another video for our internet that shows a sample bill that shows what a consumption is, show the consumption and how the rate changes, and educate some people how to read their bill? Because when I look at mine, the PCA, I want to say PCA, stays low compared to what I'm using.
The Department of Finance's website actually has a breakdown of how to read the bill. And
I'm saying put it up where people can see it, since this is a major issue.
we do it on the front page or something.
I'm sure the Royal Examiner would be glad to assist in disseminating the information.
Okay. Very good. It's not a problem. Yeah.
Put it in the Royal Examiner. Everybody reads it.
That's right.
One thing I want to remind everybody, we're all available after the meeting as well. So if something comes to you, or if you want some personal one-on-one, like with BJ, you can set up an appointment with him. You can go over your account history of stuff. David here is also going to be available after the meeting as well if you want to set up anything. If you have any questions. You know, the biggest thing I want to remind everybody is I understand, and I am trying to do the best I can. The situation is what it is right now, because we're just, unfortunately, this is what the market is bearing right now. But we are going to work to try to stabilize these costs, and I don't know what the future holds, but we're going to work hard to keep these costs stable. Because at the end of the day, you know, I'd like to be here. I'd like to be number one.
We were for a long time.
We were for a long time, but the problem is you just can't, you know, the course of business, it is what it is. Like I say, we're a nonprofit, and that's the biggest thing people got to remember.
Joe, going back to that in regards to, you referred to Harrisonburg not long ago in one of our meetings. How come that they aren't they being charged the same thing we're being charged on the CPA? Or the PCA?
See, that's the thing, everybody has a different portfolio.
Okay.
You know, like for Harrisonburg, they get their power from Dominion Energy.
Okay.
So I don't know what their setup is, but everybody has a different thing. As you will see when you look through this list here, investor-owns are normally on the lower tier because they have more area, more financing. They spread their costs out. You'll see municipalities in the middle range, and then the cooperatives are on the back end of the highest part. And the reason that is, it's all a business case. The cooperatives are on the higher end because they have more rural areas to deliver electricity to.
So Harrisonburg is not like us. They don't have their own power. They're buying it from Dominion.
Right,
Are
they're
they
buying,
being
but
charged
they're a
through
commission. They're just like us, but they buy their power from Dominion.
Dominion
As
and
like
get
all,
from AIM.
all-in requirements.
Who built that
So
big
there's
power
gonna be a
plant?
public hearing?
Public hearing tonight at 7 o'clock.
Dominion.
Oh, tonight.
Yeah, we were just, I set this Q&A forum up just to be able to talk a little bit prior and to let everybody know that we're going to be available after the meeting to answer any questions directly.
So, sorry everybody, but as I look at this chart here, presently the customer charge for commercial says $7.16 and for residential it's $7. Then all of a sudden in 20 it's $20 and residential is $8.50. And in 21 it's $25 and 10. And so I guess my question is, and you know, if you believe everything you read in the papers, you know, it sounded like the increase in the power was would seem to be unfairly distributed amongst the users, at least, you know, between commercial and residential. Why aren't we spreading it out evenly amongst all the users? Or am I misreading it and is the paper misreporting it?
What you see here, the study determined that the customer charge should be $27.64. Currently, we're charging $7.16. So the idea is to get up to as close as we can to that $27.64. When you look at the residential, customer-related cost is $10.22. Currently, we're charging $7.
And what was the rationale for that recommendation? Was it looking at other
Well,
areas?
they take a look at all of our equipment. They look at what a residential service requires, such as, you know, one transformer serves 4 houses, what the cost of a meter is.
Right.
Then they take a look at all of our commercial accounts, you know, what size transformers, all that. So they come up with a formula to determine an overall flat rate.
I mean, because I just tell you guys, it's not always easy to make a living in a small business in a small town. I mean, we do it because we economize and we try and watch our pennies and our quarters and things like that. But it can be a challenge. And, you know, a small business, all of a sudden their bill, you know, goes up by $100 or something a month. You know, you saw things like that happen, you know, a few years ago in the recession. All of a sudden, people who were living paycheck to paycheck in their small businesses closed up their doors, you know. And, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that's the municipality's responsibility, but...
Ultimately, it is, Rick.
Well, I mean, everybody has to, you know, but all I can tell you is, you know, I look at my tax, get on a bigger soapbox here. I look at my tax bill, I get all of my other bills, and then I look at what I'm charging people, and it hasn't really changed that much. Maybe that makes me a bad business person. But all my expenses have gone up over the last 10 or 15 years, and it's a little frustrating. I mean, I work 2 jobs so that I can earn a decent living, and that's not anybody's problem. That's my choice. You know, I could, you know, try and make do off of one. But it's tough to make make a small business work in a small town.
You know, Rick, the other thing that plays into that too, you know, that we've been talking about earlier, you know, we also have stock back in our shop, you know, if something was to happen. So we need to have backup for everything within the town organization. When the power does go out, we have to transfer it to the place.
Right.
And I, you know, also speaking, I can assure you, speaking for the 3 of us, as well as everybody within the town and the council and everything, we don't take this lightly. You know, that's why we had the third-party GES come out and take a bias, so to speak. You know, had nothing to do with the town, they had nothing, so to speak. So they've done the study for us, and this is what the results were. we do care. We care about the people in the situation.
You do a good job with the electricity.
Thank you,
You really do.
I have a good stay.
But you cost a lot.
I was just wondering how much, and I know it's changed a little over the years, but how much of the electric enterprise goes into the general fund?
It's formula based. We're only going to have about 4 more minutes, and I'll have to close this because we're going to have a public hearing at 7. But like I said, we will be available after.
It's, right now, the current budget year is $1,950,000.
Now, the thing you've got to remember about that is to support all the general administration, what the general administration does for the electric. They collect bills, they do HR. Okay.
And is that, in that figure, is that also included the projects that this fund is paying for?
That just supports the general fund for the administration.
Do you have a total of everything, what it takes, the total?
There's a breakdown on page 76 of the budget book that actually shows the calculations and exactly how it's contributed from all the enterprise funds. Total wise, roughly, yeah, it's about $3 million. Correct.
Joe, I have a question about what I'm reading of $1.7 million being written off in bad debt for utilities. And I understand that you don't make a profit on the utilities, but those bills are paid, but that amount is not collected. So, where does that come in? Is that how we're losing money, or?
It's $177,000. 1.7.
No, it's 1.7 million from 2013.
Oh, years ago when we first started it, that was for about 30 years worth of uncollectible bills.
Mm-hmm.
Now
But why were they not uncollectible? I looked online, some of them are $4,000 or $5,000.
At that point in time, we didn't have a collection policy, and once they reached statute of limitations, we're not able to collect them. So we adopted a collection policy that we have in place now. The current write-off, I believe, is $177,000. We are seeking other means of collection. We use a debt set-off program through the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're looking at other options as well to implement. Our collection ratio is about 99.5%.
I'm saying there's 95% of us that pay our bills.
Yeah.
But looking at that amount of money, does that mean that the town paid for those utilities out of their budget because it wasn't collected?
Ultimately, it was bad debt expense. It's part of doing business.
So it's just write it off.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, like I said, we're going to close it now because we've got about 5 minutes before the public hearing, but you will have an opportunity to address council if you choose. And like I said, we will be available after the meeting to answer any of your questions. Thank you.